Hey, my reactor. So this the final episode in the fall, and it's chapter 8. I said goodbye to Rufus the day my teacher finally did get me into trouble. I didn't know I was saying goodbye, of course. Didn't know what trouble was waiting for me in the cookhouse when I was to meet Nigel. I thought there was trouble enough in Rufus' room. I was reading there. I was there reading to him. I had been reading to him regularly since his father caught me the first time. Tom Whalen didn't want me reading on my own, but he had ordered me to read to his son. Once he had told Rufus in my presence, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. A nigger can read better than you. She can read better than you too, Rufus had answered. His father had stared at him coldly, then ordered me out the room. For a second I was afraid for Rufus, but Tom Whalen left the room with me. Don't go to him again until I say you can, he told me. 4 days passed before he said I could, and again he chastised Rufus before me. I'm no schoolmaster, he said, but I'll teach you if you can be taught. I'll teach you respect. Rufus said nothing. You want her to read to you? Yes, sir. Then you got something to say to me. I'm sorry, Daddy. Read, said Waden to me. He turned to me. He turned and left the room. What exactly are you supposed to be sorry for? I asked when Waden was gone. I spoke very softly. Talking back, said Rufus. He think everything I say is talking back, so I don't say very much to him. I see. I opened the book and began to read. We had finished Robinson Crusoe long ago, and Kevin had chosen a couple of other familiar books from the library. We had already gone through the first Pilgrim Progress. Now we were working on Gulliver's Travels. Rufus' own reading was improving slowly under Kevin's tutoring, but he still began reading. On my last day with him, though, as on a few others, Margaret came in to listen, and to fidget, and to fiddle with Rufus' head, and to pet him while I was reading. As usual, Rufus put his head on her lap and accepted her care, caressing silently. But today, apparently, that was not enough. Are you comfortable? She asked Rufus when I had been reading for a few moments. Does your leg hurt? His leg was not healing as I thought it should have. After nearly 2 months, he still couldn't walk. I feel all right, Mama, he said. Suddenly, Margaret twisted around to face me. Well, she demanded. I had paused in my reading to give her a chance to finish. I lowered my head and began to read again. About 60 seconds later, she said, Baby, you hot? You want me to call Virgil up here to find you? Virgil was about 10, one of the small house servants often called to find the whites, run errands for them, curry covered dishes of food between the cookhouse and the main house, and serve the whites at their tables. I'm all right, Mama, said Rufus. Why don't you go on? Snapped Margaret at me. You're supposed to be here reading, so read. I began to read again, biting off the words a little. A little. Are you hungry, baby? Asked Margaret a moment later. Aunt Sarah just made a cake. Wouldn't you like a piece? I didn't stop this time. I just lowered my voice a little and read automatically, tonelessly. I don't know why you won't. I don't know why you want to listen to her, Margaret said to Rufus. She got a voice like a fly buzzer. I don't want no cake, Mama. You sure? You ought to see the fine white icing Sarah put on it. I want to hear Dana read, that's all. Well, there she is reading, if you can call it that. I let my voice grow progressively softer as they talked. I can't hear her with you talking, Rufus said. Baby, all I said was, don't say nothing, Rufus took his head off her lap. Go away and stop bothering me. Rufus, she sounded hurt rather than angry, and in spite of the situation, this sounded like real disrespect to me. I stopped reading and waited for for the explosion. It came from Rufus. Go away, Mama, he shouted. Just leave me alone. Be still, she whispered, baby. You're making yourself sick. Rufus turned his head and looked at her. The expression on his face startled me. For once, the boy looked like a smaller replica of his father. His mouth was drawn into a thin, straight line, and his eyes were coldly hostile. He spoke quietly now, as Wyland sometimes did when he was angry. You're making me sick, Mama. Get away from me. Margaret got up and dabbed at her eyes. I don't see how you can talk to me like that. Just because of some nigger. Rufus just looked at her and finally she left the room. He relaxed against his pillow and closed his eyes. I get so tired of her sometimes, he said. Ruth, he opened really friendly eyes and looked at me. The anger was gone. You better be careful, I said. What if your mother told your father you talked to her that way? She never tells, he grinned. She'll be back after a while. She'll be back after a while to bring me a piece of cake with fine white icing. She was crying. She always cries. Breathe, Dana. Do you talk to her that way often? I have to, or she won't leave me alone. Daddy does it too. I took a deep breath, shook my head, and plunged back into Gulliver's travels. Later, as I left Rufus, I passed Margaret on her way back to his room. Sure enough, she was carrying a large slice of cake on a plate. I went downstairs and out to the cookhouse to give Nigel his reading lessons. Nigel was waiting. He already had our books out of the hiding place and was spelling out words to Curry. That surprised me because I had offered Curry a chance to learn with him, and she refused. Now, though, the two of them, alone in the cookhouse, were so involved in what they were doing that they didn't even notice me until I shut the door. They looked up then, wide-eyed with fear. But they relaxed when they saw it was only me. I went over to them. Do you want to learn? I asked Curry. The girl fear seemed to return and she glanced at the door. Aunt Sarah afraid for her to learn, said Nigel. Afraid if she learned she might get caught at it and then be whipped or sold. I lowered my head, sighing. The girl couldn't talk, couldn't communicate at all except in the adequate sign language she had invented, a language even her mother only half understood. In a more rational society, ability to write would be a great grief to help her. But here, the only people who could read her writing would be those who might punish her for being able to write in Nigel. I looked from the boy to the girl. Should I teach you, Curry? If I did and her mother caught me, I might be in more trouble than if Tom Whalen caught me. I was afraid to teach her both for her sake and for mine. Her mother wasn't a woman I wanted to offend or to hurt, but my conscience wouldn't let me refuse her if she wanted to learn. Curry nodded. She wanted to learn all right. She turned away from us for a moment, did something to her dress, then turned back with a small book on her hand. She too had stolen from the library. Her book was a volume of English history illustrated with a few drawings which he pointed out to me. I shook my head. Either hide it or put it back, I told her. It's too hard for you to begin with. The one Nigel and I are using was written for people who just started to learn. It was an old speller, probably the one Whalen's first wife had been taught from. Curry's fingers caressed one of the drawings for a moment. Then she put the book back into her dress. Now, I said, find something to do in case your mother comes in. I can't teach you in here. We have to find someplace else to meet. She nodded, looking relieved, and went over to sweep the other side of the room. Nigel, I said softly when she was gone. I surprised you when I came in here, didn't I? Didn't know it was you. Yes, it could have been Sarah, couldn't it? He said nothing. I teach you in here because Sarah said I could, and because the Whalens never seem to come out here. They don't. They sent us out here to tell Sarah what they want, or to tell her to come to them. So you can learn here, but Curry can't. We might have trouble no matter how careful we are, but we don't have to ask for it. He nodded. By the way, what does your father think of my teaching you? I don't know. I didn't tell him you was. Oh, God, I took a shaky breath. But he does know, doesn't he? Aunt Sarah probably told him. He never said nothing to me. If anything went wrong, there would be blacks to take their revenge on me when the whites finish. When will I ever go home? Will I ever go home? Or if I had to stay here, why couldn't I just turn these two kids away? Turn off my conscience and be a coward, safe and competent. I took the book from Nigel, handed him my own pencil and a piece of paper from my tablet. Spelling test, I said quietly. He passed the test, every word right. To my surprise as well as his, I hugged him. He grinned, half embarrassed, half pleased. Then I got up and put his chest paper into the hot coals of the hearth. It burst into flames and burned completely. I was always careful about that, and I always hated being careful. I couldn't help contrasting Nigel's lesson with Rufus, and the contrast made me bitter. I turned to go back to the table where Nigel was waiting. In that moment, Tom Wade opened the door and stepped in. It wasn't supposed to happen. For as long as I had been on the plantation, it had not happened. No white had come into the cookhouse, not even Kevin. Nigel had just agreed with me that it didn't happen. But there stood Tom Wayne staring at me. He lowered his gaze a little and frowned. I realized that I was still holding the old stutter. I had gotten up with it in my hand and I hadn't put me down. I even had one finger in its holding place. I withdrew my finger and let the book close. I was in for a beating now. Where was Kevin? Somewhere inside the house probably. He might hear me if I scream, and I won't be screaming shortly anyway. I will be screaming shortly anyway, but it would be better if I could just get past Waylon and run into the house. Waylon stood squarely in front of the door. Didn't I tell you I didn't want you reading? I said nothing. Clearly, nothing I could say would help. I felt myself trembling and I tried to be still. I hope Waylon couldn't see, and I hope Nigel had the sense to get the pencil off the table. So far, I was the only one in trouble. If I could just stay that way. I treated you good, said Waylon quietly, and you pay me back by stealing from me, stealing my books and reading. He snatched the book from me and threw it on the floor. Then he grabbed me by my arm and dragged me towards the door. I managed to twist around to face Nigel and mouth the word "get Kevin," and saw Nigel stand up. Then I was out of the cookhouse. Waylon dragged me a few feet and pushed me hard. I fell, knocked myself breathless. I never saw where the whip came from, never even saw the first blow coming, but it came like a hot iron across my back, burning into me through my light shirt, searing my skin. I screamed, convulsed. Waylon struck again and again until I couldn't have gotten up at gunpoint. I kept trying to crawl away from the blows, but I didn't have the strength as the coordination to get up. I may have been still screaming or just whimpering. I couldn't tell. All I was really aware of was the pain. I thought Waylon meant to kill me. I thought I would die on the ground there with a mouth full of dirt and blood and a white man cursing and lecturing and as he beat me. By then, I almost wanted to die. Anything to stop the pain. I vomit and I vomit again because I couldn't move my face away. I saw Kevin blurred, but somehow still I still recognize him, put it like that. I saw him running towards me in slow motion, running, legs churning, arms pumping, yet he hardly seemed to be getting closer. Suddenly, I realized what was happening, and I screamed. I think I screamed. He had to reach me. He had to, and I passed out. So that's the end of the fall, and I'll be back with a new title of Kindred. Bye, my reactors.